Alright, so today I want to talk about Redux/RTK and Next.js. Through a few small projects, I'm going to go ahead and show how I implement Redux Toolkit on Next.js. To build those small projects I talked about, I'm going to be using this as a data source, dummyjson.com. This is a fantastic third-party API for testing and prototyping. From here, I'm going to be taking posts to create simpler of the three, and then products. This one I will implement some search and filtering, and the third one will be users. This one, it would be a little bit of complicated implementation, as you will see. And also, this is the documentation for all the API endpoints. They have very detailed info, all the URLs you're going to be needing. Please feel free to research it for yourself. I bet you will find this as a really great resource for all your prototyping needs. That being said, let me show you the project. This is the blog project. This is the simplest among the three. Here I just go to this data source. This is all the post data. I just use RTK Query to pull them in and display on the page. Through this one, we're going to see how the base structure of the Redux setup work. The next one would be a little bit more complex, where I'm going to be involving a search and some filtering mechanism involved to demonstrate a little bit more complex implementation. And the third one would have the similar, but it would have a multi-level filtering process, so that even though the structurally product and client, they're going to be same, but to handle this data, the structure of the data would be a lot more different, especially when I refactor it. So let's go start here and check out the code behind this to learn more. Alright, so this is where I have the code, the Next.js code, and here I structured all my files and folders according to Redux documentation. For example, here under featured, the three type of data I'm going to be handling. I have folder for each: posts, products, and users. If I open them up, we will see that this is the API post. This is where I implement the createAPI, and the other two here in the posts is going to bring in the list of the post, which is visible here. We'll come back to this one later, but at this point we should go check out the store file. All this configuration are combined in here. To implement it onto the store, all we need is bring in from that API post. From here we just bring in the API post and then add it to the reducers list, API post dot reducer path and the reducer, and then a set of middleware. This is the first one for this one. So 1, 2, and 3. These three are needed to implement it, the API, post API, onto the store. And now we have to go to the pages, and we have to find the _app.tsx. TSX is because everything is in Typescript on this project. And here you can see we're bringing in the provider from React Redux and wrapping the whole application with this provider, and picking up that store from here and putting it through so that the whole app would have access to the store. And that being said, now let's go back to the post page, which is under pages. Actually, I named it blog. So here, this is the index file. This is the main file for the page, and here you can see the headlines, and then for SEO purposes, the header, the title, meta, etc. And in here I'm using that use get post query, which I found in here because based on this query, get post, create API will create a nice little hook for us, use get post query, and this is what I'm calling right here, use get post query, to pull the data in. And this by default it gives us access to the data, is loading, error, etc. And from this data where I actually bring in the post data from the global type or interfaces, which I maintain right here. All my TypeScript types are right here, all exported. So whenever I want, wherever I need them, I just pull them in, like as I did here under pages here, right here. So I declare a variable which would have the post data array type, and I collect it from the data.post, and then I'm going to go ahead and pass it along as a post prop to the post component. And post component we will find right here, features post component, and according to the data we just display everything we need. Thus we find this result right here. Now let's move on to the product. Alright, so let's look at some of the features here, like let's say men, we get this, then we get women, and we find this. Let's try another one, phone, and at the same time we can just go to fragrance as a category, sunglasses, women's bag, motorcycles, etc., etc. Filtering it all for us. So now before we go to the code, I just wanted to go to a diagram to explain a little bit better. Alright, so this is where I kind of put all the pieces together here, and using pseudocode I'm going to try to explain what exactly is going to happen. And we have seen before that in the post structure we did have this createAPI file and the product, the post page, right, where we actually call that that hook this createAPI provides us with to get post, in this case get products, and it's going to become use get product query, and we're going to be using it in the product page. In this one though, we would have one extra file, RTK createSlice. This is where we're going to be using or setting up the action creators, and we also have implemented the search bar and radio bar, as you saw here, the search bar and the radio bar. So in here, just for simplicity's sake, the way I would explain it is that this would be like using the use state hook, right? This is where you're going to have the set search term or set category term. The search term and the category term are going to be the state, as you can see here. So this is where we're going to have those functions. In this case, we get to write these functions, and through this file we will make these functions available in the store, and from the store, according to necessity, in the search bar or the radio bar, there will be a function that we will bring in from the RTK library, and it's called a dispatch. Using this dispatch, we're going to use this function set search item, set search terms, or set category term here, and using that search form, we're going to be passing this e.target.value, that form value, and in this case the radio button form value here, e.target.value. So we get to manipulate the state in here within this search bar and the radio bar. Like for example here, as soon as we click something, we just update the state of this category term, and in here when we are calling this use get product query, this time we're going to give them two dependencies. It's kind of like, it's going to be like using a use effect with dependencies. So as soon as these dependencies change, this through this hook, this function get products is going to be invoked every time there is a state change. So in here, this time in the RTK createAPI, we will structure it differently, because this time we're going to get arguments, and the arguments are going to be this state, search term, category term, and according to these we're going to be calling different URLs. For example, if we get the search term, we'll be using this URL from the data source or the API source, and depending on this search term, we're going to get the result of the products according to the search term. Same with the category term. We will use this URL to get the category based results, and if these are empty, these two are empty, then we get just all products, simply /product, and I'm just limiting it by 10 just to get 10 items at a time. So this being said, now let's go to the code to get a better picture. Alright, so we are back at the code, and as you saw before, so let's go under product and go to the API product. This is where we're making the call. As you can see, just like at the diagram, depending on these states, we're calling different URLs to get results, and I'm using the if-then logic to organize them. If none of them are available, then it will go ahead and get the regular results, 10 of them. Just like if I just refresh, this is the straight up random results, the first 10 of the products. And depending on the search item, if I change it here, let's say men, and it goes out there and make the call to this URL, and depending on this search term, it's giving the result. And same happens with the category when I click any one of these. Now let's go see what's happening in the product slice. In here we're just creating an initial state where these two terms are nothing but empty strings, and then we're going to call this the whole reducer is going to be called product or product slice. And inside the reducers, this is the action creators, the set search term and set category term as mentioned here. These are the guys, and then from here I'm exporting them, product.actions, and then the whole product slice.reducer. And all these, to be able to work, they need to be set up in the store file. Let's go all the way down here. So in here you can see the product slice reducer. This name I just made up. You can say whatever you want here, but this is gonna go ahead and bring the reducer from the product slice, because this is the default one. And in here, just like we named it here, these two has to match. For example, let me see here. See, name product, this needs to match this one right here, this word. So this reducer, product slice reducer equal to product right here. And when we're bringing slices from the reducer, we don't need to add anything to the middleware. A middleware only necessary for the createAPI Redux function. So this is the only little addition to the store file to make the products reducer work. And now let's go check the products page, the index file right here. In here we just call the current state of the search term and the category term using another hook from RTK, React Redux, which is called useSelector, just like I mentioned right here. useSelector, search term and product term. So we're collecting the current status of the search term and the category term, and we are taking this and passing along to this get user product query as arguments. And if we look back and see that this get products builder, get products function is actually taking search term and category term as arguments, and depending on these arguments they are making the necessary calls to the URL and getting the data. Now one thing to notice here to product slice, as we are adding the action.payload or the state, updating the state here search term, we are also nullifying the category term, emptying it up. Same way we're doing when we are updating category term, we are also nullifying the search term. Because if this is not done, then we're going to have a problem, because in here, since search term is at the top, since we don't nullify it, search term will still be available, and that will hinder the category term. Just to show you the result here, let me just disable this for a little bit, save it and go back. and let's see if we see men, right? And now we go here, look, it's not doing anything because we're still sending men, and in here this is still finding the search term and calling this query. So then as soon as we enable this guy and this guy, so what's happening is anytime we update this guy, we also empty the category, and when we update the search term, category term, we empty the search term. So now each one will be in effect separately. Men is doing its job, and then as soon as I hit this, now this is empty and this one is in effect. So this is a very important point to remember. Other than that, let's go see what's happening in our components, especially in our search bar and the product search bar. There you go. We're just we're bringing in the dispatch, and we're bringing in the search term, and this search term we're using it as a value in the form, and as a on change handler we are just bringing that dispatch and the set search term, which we just collected from our product slice. And if you look back, let's go to the product slice here. Oh, it's right here. See, this is one of the functions I'm sending. Just like I mentioned, this is like the use state, which comes as a setter function. Only in this case, we are creating these setter functions: set search term, set category term. So we go back to the product search bar, and in here we just bringing in dispatch and getting the set search term from the slice, and our event.target.value, whatever we put into this input, we are just passing it here and updating the state. And as soon as this state is up to date, then in this file, this product index, where we are calling this query, get product query function, this state changes, will invoke this function again inside the API product. Thus it's going to make a brand new call and update the data. Same way, if we also look into the radio button category group, here the same thing happening. We're getting dispatch, we're getting the handle category function, we're bringing in the set category term from the product slice, and putting the form value in there. Only extra thing happening here is that we are getting one extra function, use get category query, because I decided to make this categories dynamic. So if we look back into this file, the product API product, right, you will see that we have one extra function here, get categories, and it's just gonna go to the product slash categories and bring in the category array. And this array in here, we are going back to radio button category. So in here we just simply collecting the set of categories here, and depending on the results we are looping through and dynamically creating all the category choices. Like here, all these category choices are coming from slash categories endpoint and being dynamically created, and that's the only extra thing. Other than that, everything else is just the same. Now let's go back to the last project. We're not going to get into too much of the detail like we did before, but I'm just going to show you a separate structure here. Okay, so let's go over the functionality a little bit. Let's say she search, and then we go female. You can see all the female here, all the female robots, and then who uses Visa card. One guy uses Visa card right here. Let's go to the master. Now see, everybody's using MasterCard. And if we go, who's using dollar as a currency, dollar right here, and then go to euro right here, euro, just like that. So this one has a little bit of a complex structure, and which I try to code. Let's go back to the code, and let me get rid of this guys. Okay, So I just want to show you how I initially did it, just like I did the products, right? So that's why I kept this in the archive. So this was my first structure for this. In fact, let's go to the slice. So exactly like the product, I had this reducer, and for each one set search term, set card, card term and currency and gender. Everything was a separate state, and for every one of them to work properly, I have to nullify every other ones, just like the one before, the product one I showed you. And then in here, depending on those terms, I was calling corresponding URLs to get the results, right? But if you look here, I mean, it looks not very good. I mean, it looks pretty amateurish and lots of, it's not dry, you know. Don't repeat yourself. That's one of the very important principles of programming. It was not followed. It's like lots of repetition here. So that's why, while everything else is the same, I just wanted to show you the new data structure that I used. Let's go to the global interfaces. In here, the root state, the product remained the same, you know, search term, category term, strings, but the user one, instead of all the terms separately, I just created one filter. And this filter has a structure. I have used a union type here, where this type, like filter type, could be search or card or currency or gender. Only out of these four, nothing else, right? And all of their values are going to be strings. So depending on that, now let's see how our API users look like. Look at that. It's very clean and neat. So at this point, I used a like the switch filter. So here I'm using like either search, card, currency, gender, depending on whatever comes through. But there will always be the filter. It's just one, and filter has the filter type, and we are switching among the filter.type values, right? And it's simplified the code quite a bit, but more importantly, look at the user slice here, how simple this one is. So at this point, you know, I just declared initial state, you know, just filter, type, and value. The default I kept is search, because, you know, that's the first one, and the rest are just filters. And in here I gave the name user and initial state as this guy. And in here I brought in the payload action. This is a special type. This is directly from Redux Toolkit. If you're using JavaScript, you're not going to need that. But here I had to clarify for type safety and payload action, and I put in the filter that I just showed you. You know, this is the data type for type safety, this filter data type that I passed along. So now the Typescript knows that whatever action we're about to send is going to have this filter type data structure, right? And in here the state.filter.type, and we're just updating the value accordingly, the payload.type and payload.value. And then we are sending just one simple function, set filter, through our, you know, this is the action creator, through the user slice.action and user slice.reducer. And according to that, we set up our store here, and in here just we're calling it user, and we're bringing that reducer, user slice reducer directly here, and that's all the setup you need from the store. Now let's go to the components to see how they're being handled. Let's first go with the user search bar. In here we are just bringing in the dispatch from the use dispatch, which is from the React Redux, and then the filter. And this time we are using once again use select, and from our, we're giving the root state the data type, and here it's going to be state.user.filter. And once we get the filter, from the filter we collect the search term by using a ternary operator. So if this type turns out to be search, then get the value, and this search term I'm using right here. And to handle input, we just bring in the dispatch set filter, and if the type is search, then the value should be event.target.value. The same way we do this, let's go with the radio gender. Same way, actually, here I'm just providing an array, a static array, because there's no reason to bring in anything from API. So this is my genders, and then the dispatch comes accordingly. And in here we also bring in that set filter from use filter, and accordingly we are updating the status, the state using set filter, type gender, then event.target.value. Same way with currency, exact same. Here's also, I'm just giving it a static value to create the radio buttons, but the rest are almost exactly the same. Set filter coming in, dispatch coming in, and according to the type we are setting the value to event.target.value. Same with credit, and thus these guys, when we change them, it changes the status or state. It's updating the state of the filter, and this is the filter then goes ahead and invokes the index file's queries. This is not the one, it should be the user in here. Right, there you go. So in here we're bringing in the filter and using use select to get the filter out, and when we call the use get users query, and we just passing along this filter, and depending on this filter we get this data. And just to take a look at what's happening in the API where this use get user query is, let's go back to this guy again, and as you can see the filter coming in, and all we're doing here is the filter.type, and then we're just getting the search, card, currency, or gender out. If none of them are available, we just make the regular call to the users and getting 8 of them just like this randomly. Otherwise we just either filter or search. And that being said, this concludes my RTK or Redux Toolkit implementation on Next project. Thanks for watching.